So by now you would have heard how you, the one young world, is our greatest hope for the future. But I'm going to give you some of the bad news. I'm going to give you some of the dangers, how you're going to have to learn to be skeptical, but not cynical, and how the AI that you've heard about, which you're being told to run to, is manipulating you. Ha 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 ha. Can you raise your hand if you are on social media? Do you mind? Let me just see who's on social media here. Raise your hand. All right, I see. Oh, wow. You guys are all on social media, which fits the 18 to 34 age group. Last, one more time with the lights. How many have tried ChatGPT? All of you, almost. All right, perfect. So I'll just go back in time, right, before we tackle the technology. I think from me to you, let me start with the best lesson I have ever learned, which is that, the greatest work of art you will ever work on is yourself. And there's this wonderful T.S. Eliot quote from Tradition and the Individual Talent. He was talking about novels and books, but it fits how we create ourselves. He said that if you read Shakespeare, your appreciation of Shakespeare will be affected by the latest novel you read, and the latest novel you read will be shaped by the fact that you read Shakespeare. He calls it the present moment of the past. One of the greatest dangers that technology has done today is it is robbing us of history, of context, of nuance, and it is insidiously manipulating us. Oh, I sound all doom and gloom here, right? But I've embraced it. And we at Rappler, it's a small company, about 120 people in the Philippines. My co-founders and I started it in 2012. And we are at the forefront of this. We have generative AI. We are using generative technology, which now I know exactly its failures. Let me tell you a little bit about how I got to you here today. I went to public high school in the Philippines. I learned to code when I was a junior on BASIC and Fortran, and where you had to carry stacks of cards, and because you're a geek, they'll trip you in the hallway and all your cards will spill out. But it was an incredible time, and the machine was just starting then. From there, I went to Princeton University, where there was this fantastic honor code. The honor code says that I pledge I will not cheat, and that I will turn in anyone else in front of me that I see cheating. It's a really great corollary, which I took with me as I grew up, because when you work in the Philippines or in Southeast Asia, where corruption is endemic, institutions are weak, you need to actually bring that together and build it into institutions, young leaders, right? So that not only do you pledge not to be corrupt, you pledge to also turn in anyone who's corrupt around you. I grew up so today is the 52nd anniversary of the Declaration of Martial Law in the Philippines. The Philippines, our colonial history in one sentence. We spent 300 years in a convent and 50 years in Hollywood. 300 years under Spanish rule and 50 years under the United States, under America. In fact, we were a footnote in the US in the Spanish-American War. We were the award. We're not even in the books, right? So this is something we've grown up with. And as my family left when martial law was declared. I came to New Jersey, Toms River, New Jersey, and I went to public school, and I never felt completely American. I'm an introvert, and I was shy, and I really am an introvert. So you can change that as well, depending on what you do. And I began to look for roots. Roots for me meant going back to the Philippines. And in 1986, when the People Power Revolt ousted Ferdinand Marcos, the father of our new president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., when he was ousted for stealing $10 billion in 1986, the kleptocrat that triggered the move of Southeast Asia and the world from one-man rule to democracy, right? So I came in 1986, and when I went to the Philippines, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not quite Filipino. And over the years, I've felt most Filipino when I'm with Americans, and I've felt most American when I'm with Filipinos. I think that's the best training I've had for being a journalist, because the idea that more than one thing can happen, the idea that you have respect for different cultures and different ways of looking at the world, the idea of tradition and history, these things are important. And we really are stronger in our diversity. When I turned 40, I decided I was going to choose my home. And I chose the Philippines because I thought, wow, well, I can go. By that point, I'd been with CNN about 20 years. I opened the Manila Bureau in 1987, and then the Jakarta Bureau in Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim population, opened that in 1995. And I'd been reporting in war zones, and I'd gotten tired of breaking news. So I thought, when I turned 40, I'm going to choose home. And I could have gone to America, which I thought I would have covered a country that was falling apart. Sorry. Or I could choose the Philippines, where we were really starting to put ourselves together. My mentor at that time convinced me to stay in the Philippines, and I chose home. Of course, when I got attacked by President Rodrigo Duterte, and I almost went to jail. Well, I kept getting arrested in 2019, so I have 11 criminal charges that are now down to 2 over 8 years, right? At that point, I thought I made a mistake, but no, I haven't, because you clapped, right? Here's the thing. No matter how bad it gets, you got to understand that it will get better, but it depends on what you do. It doesn't come to you. Hope comes with action. You act. But you act with the dangers in front of you. And let me go to the technology now, right? There's really been 2 instances where artificial intelligence, which has been around since the 1950s, it was coined in 1956, and yet now it feels like you've just heard all about it, right? So by definition, artificial intelligence was a marketing term. And almost everything you hear today is meant to sell you on it. Again, I will say, if you go to Rappler, you will see that we have all the latest technology on it. So I speak to you not just as a journalist, I build the tech, and I'm also the person who was attacked, starting in 2016 with 90 hate messages per hour, right? And when I went to Facebook and told them this, they said, but Maria, you're a public figure. Every single one of the women who you were here earlier, when you are attacked online, it is not a free speech issue. It is free speech used to pound you to silence. That is the problem, right? So the roots of this surveillance capitalism model really traces back to the 1990s when 2 things happened. There were no restrictions placed on commercial surveillance, right? That's important. And then the second was the endorsement of advertising as the business model for the internet. So that means these for-profit companies can scoop up all your data, and let me just talk about how it works, right? For social media, they use machine learning to build a model of you that knows you better than you know yourself. Let's replace the word model with clone. Did you give permission to be cloned online? None of us have. But that clone is scooped up by AI, and that becomes the motherlode database of all of us that is used to micro-target. Micro-targeting is not advertising. It is taking your weakest moment to a message and selling it to a company or country, and I say that, right? So they established these big tech monopolies. How did they do it? Through search, social media, marketplaces. Did I mention Jeff Bezos was my classmate in college? They invested in data collection and processing capabilities, and that dominance was actually aided by the US government policies and soft power, which is part of the reason we need to push the United States to actually take action, right? Because the EU is leading this. Yesterday, I was just with Shoshana Zuboff, who in 2019 published Surveillance Capitalism, and Margrethe Vestager, who is the woman who in the EU is the executive vice president, who literally for the last decade has put in place antitrust policies, right? The Digital Services Act, the Digital Markets Act. That's the only thing that is protecting all of us in the Global South included. So why does Joshua Bengio, not to say, because he is the father of the internet, and Canada has been ahead, right? But why is he saying that this is going to change all of us? Well, this generative AI, the second time that we've really faced it at scale, is, well, both of these are not anchored on facts, right? They're not anchored on facts. If you use generative AI, if you're using the ChatGPT, be careful, because what it will do, and you can use their 10 foundational models, all of whom are not transparent, all of whom have taken our content as publishers, your content, anything on the internet, and fed it. And, garbage in is garbage out. It's also thrown in the social media, the toxic sludge that is insidiously manipulating all of us. That's in the mix. So the probability is based on that. None of this is anchored in facts. In fact, in 2021 at the Nobel lecture, I called social media the atom bomb that exploded in our information ecosystem, and we didn't know it, right? The toxic sludge that in MIT in 2018 said lies spread 6 times faster than facts. And in the Philippines in 2017, we saw in data that if you lace it with fear, anger, and hate, that it spreads even faster. The polarization you see is by design, right? So how do you fight this? And I've got 6 minutes left, so look. No, I won't stay, because I don't want you to be any later. I want you to be careful. Like us, use the tech, but be aware. And you know what? Thinking slow is never going to fight thinking fast. Because yes, what the technology has done is hacked our biology. It changes our emotions, changes how we feel, which changes the way we see the world, and it changes the way we act and the way we vote. So it is not a coincidence that as of January this year, 71% of the world, and this is 71% of the world, have elected illiberal leaders democratically, right? So this is, again, by design, it all connects. So I have 5 minutes. All right, so let me say this, right? Be careful of the salespeople, the people who developed it, the people who tell you this is the peak of human progress. It is not. The peak of human progress is you. It's our creativity, aided by the machine. So yesterday's panel at Harvard, we also had Biban Kedron, the Baroness Biban Kedron, who every single study that has been done to protect the youth, you can trace to her work. right? So the four of us were there, and I almost felt sorry for big tech. But what we came out with is this. This is the time. It's almost too late, but you are vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. We have never seen a generation gap like this one. And our sister company, Nerve, right? So when Rappler was attacked, we had a shutdown order in January 2018, and we dropped 50%, 49% of our advertising revenue in 4 months. But we decided we were going to fight. And we did, but we splintered off a sister company called Nerve. That company took 3 years of structured, that's traditional media, structured data, and 3 years of unstructured big data, social media. And what we found, this is in the United States, the US information ecosystem. We know this from experience. We did this in the Philippines. This is how I could see that we were being insidiously manipulated, right? You have to know the data. Well, what we found is this. Americans are going to vote with less facts, more fear, anger, and hate. 4 out of 10 Americans get their information from social media. And in a statistical survey, Gen Z, the group 18 to 34, the target of information operations, both domestic in America and overseas from Russia, China, Iran, specifically targeting campus protests, they spend the most time on social media. They trust the information they get on social media. In fact, the survey showed almost the complete opposite. 55% of 18 to 34-year-olds said that they trust political information they get on social media. And those like me, 55 and above, 51% said they distrust it. That's the gap, right? So my caution is this. When you live in the sewer, when you live in the toxic sludge, you can't help but get dirty, right? You can't help but inhale the fumes. So here's what we can do. You're here together. Move out of that. It's gotten to a point where the design of social media, along with generative AI, or what Cory Doctorow called the enshittification of the internet, right? As of January this year, an academic paper said the internet is now 57.1% low-quality content. We are heading to the edge. So come out, go in the real world, organize yourselves in the real world. Pia Ranada, who is the senior reporter of Rappler, who now heads civic engagement, she stood up against Rodrigo Duterte, our dictator. He's gone though, but she's here, right? And you know, I'm old compared to her, so 90 hate messages, that's okay, because I've been around. But young Pia at 24, 25 years old, that's a tough one. So if you feel afraid, you're not alone. Organize yourselves. In Rappler, we called it the swarm. When Pia was attacked, we swarmed. But now the attack comes so frequently, and the target are women, LGBTQ+, anyone. You know, the journalists were first, now it's women activists, and then women politicians, right? So you gotta be aware, know you're vulnerable, and prepare for that. I have 29 seconds left. Let me leave you with this. In April 2022, Dmitry Muratov and I came out with the 10-point action plan. I'm going to boil down and summarize for you like ChatGPT into 3. Bucket number 1, and this is what we must be working for: stop surveillance for profit, right? That is data privacy and antitrust. Number 2, stop coded bias. We must protect the youth, because if you are a woman, LGBTQ+, if you are marginalized in the real world, you are further marginalized online. This needs to stop, and we must hold people accountable for that. Finally, the last one, journalism as an antidote to tyranny, right? We at Rappler have given up. I mean, we're partners with every single tech company. We were one of 10 chosen by OpenAI out of 1,000 applicants to actually use generative AI for democratic consultation. Pia can tell you more about that. Please use the service that we provided. But we now are building deliberative technology. And think about this. France, Germany, Taiwan, countries that care about privacy, are building on the Matrix Protocol. The Matrix Protocol means that you have data privacy, that you don't have insidious algorithms manipulating you. I hate to send you to X, but I will give you more information there because I do not want to take more of your time. I do want to leave you with this. You are the future. You must fix what my generation has broken. And we are still there with you. We will help you, but we go in with our eyes wide open. Thank you. Thank you.